When you make a game, you want it to be good. And not only good, but fulfilling. When you run out of good things to do in your main game, but you still have some spare time, or some spare room, or you're just plain bored, what else can you do to make the game better? Why, add minigames, of course. Or maybe your game is just a giant collection of minigames. In any case, there's a thing about minigames, and that's that they aren't exactly held to the same standards of normal games. You can make a bad minigame and get away with it, assuming the rest of your game, or many of your other minigames, are pretty good. But when a minigame is truly exceptional, it just adds that much more to the core game. Bit odd, really, when you really think about it. Now note that these are not micro games, lasting only a few seconds, but neither are they to be considered full games. Of course, there is some leniency as to what can be considered a minigame, so accept some boundaries pushed here. Without further ado, in Professor Layton and the Diabolical Box, the only Professor Layton title I've yet played, yes, shame on me, you spend most of your time either adventuring or puzzle solving. While it might take you more than a few seconds to figure out some of these puzzles, I would hardly count them as mini-games. But the fact remains that they are still there, and are often pretty darn tough. Why can't we just settle down for a spell and enjoy a cup of tea? Well, with the tea set, that's exactly what you can do. Now, I know many people will greatly prefer the hamster minigame to the tea set, and it could be argued that the tea set is more of a gameplay mechanic for more puzzles rather than a minigame, but I really don't care. There's just something about mixing and matching these tea ingredients to find new combinations that hits all the right buttons for me, especially when I'm playing as Professor Layton, the best British character ever conceived. Helping these people out is simply a bonus. Not much else to say about this one. It's a purely subjective entry, you could say. I feel a little bad that my pick for the Legend of Zelda series minigames is lying all the way down here at number 9. There are so many of them, and most of them are really good. But when I love all these other minigames so much, what can you do? Of course, that isn't to say that Battle Mode from Phantom Hourglass is a bad minigame. Actually, it's really good. All throughout your adventure, you're constantly overshadowed and completely dominated by these phantoms, which are invincible up until the end of the game, and even then you have to strike them from behind. It's quite annoying, but when you become the phantom and weigh down the walloping on Link, it turns into some sort of grim satisfaction. That doesn't mean Link will go down easily, though. He's agile, that guy, and clever to boot, not to mention that he has direct control over his movements, whereas you only get to draw a path. To make up for it, though, there are 3 of you and 1 of him, and all it takes is 1 shot to take him down. If you still don't like the arrangement, don't worry, because you'll be Link in the next round. Yes, this is the versus mode of Phantom Hourglass, and what makes it work so well is that you think everyone would be fighting over control of the phantoms, but no, it's just as much fun to play them as it is to play as Link. You both have advantages and disadvantages, and it's an incredibly even match every single time, despite both sides being very distinct. Now, I know that you get to control another phantom in pretty much the entire game of Spirit Tracks, but it's just not quite the same feel. The Kirby series isn't exactly known for its minigames, but maybe it should be. Well, the core game is usually great and all, but the minigames are often quite different from the main game, and yet still manage to be grade A fun times for just about everybody. Whether you're having a competition to create the biggest cracks in the planet, or shooting away at a giant robot, you can't claim that these minigames are boring. However, if I had to pick just one that I thought was the very best, I'd have to go with Ninja Dojo. The other minigames are great to mess around with, and you might really want to beat a couple of them, but when it comes to straight out 4-player versus that still has a part that you can beat and you just really want to mess around with it, but you also kind of want to beat it. Yeah, that's a lot of qualifications, but Ninja Dojo is still the place to go. The concept is simple. Throw a star and try to hit as close to the center of the target as possible. The issues commence when you factor in false targets and speed changes, those evil Gordos, and 3 other players trying to do the exact same thing. It's a matter of perfect timing to win this main game, and the competitive spirit constantly rises with the tension. It gets to the point where you might miss the target entirely simply because the tension itself is just too much. And I love that. We Fight the Game is a game that I'm not going to really talk about since I've already recorded footage for another top 10 where I state that I've yet to mention it, and I really don't feel like going back and redoing that footage, so yeah, pretend that I never talked about it at all. Except for this part of the list. All you need to know for this video is that in the game, there's a time-traveling elephant who likes peanuts. You can find Peanut for every level he's in, and when you bring it back, he'll give you some kind of reward. So if you're a video game developer as insane as Games, what do? Why making an entire minigame devoted to this one function, of course? Well, an argument could be made for the arena making this list instead, but I've always found that the Peanut Warehouse is far more investing. You play as either of two main characters in We Fight the Game, and all you have to do is break open crates, collect peanuts, and not die. You often have to use every strategy you can think of and every ability your character has to beat your high score each and every time. Fighting yourself isn't often easy, but in this game, it's also very rewarding. It's rather rewarding, especially from the game's perspective, because if you manage to get pretty high up in numbers before you die, you start to unlock accessory codes. And considering that the most common and easiest way to get those is to beat an episode, that's a reward worth having. And did I mention that you can play as me? Just figured I would. Do I even need to say anything? Cunfoot is everything I wanted from Rayman Legends. A fun game with the controls and brilliance of Rayman Origins that also embraced the absolute ridiculousness and pure joy of that same game. Here it all is, compacted into one minigame. Stakes are high, tension rises, and you'll scream at your friends while hanging by the goal quite literally by the skin of your teeth. Absolute chaos in the best way possible. Now, I could go on and say quite a bit more about this game, but really all that would be is repeating what Rabbid Luigi has already said in his own top 10 minigames. So, if you want more info, just go watch that. Or better yet, just play Cunfoot. You'll figure it out. When somebody makes a list of the top 10 minigames, you can pretty much guarantee that there will be at least one Mario Party minigame on there. Mario Party minigames are the standard all other minigames tried to hold up to. In the same way that Super Mario Bros. Was the father of platformers, Mario Party was the father of minigames. How unexpected it is, then, that my favorite Mario Party minigame is from possibly the least party-centered game of them all. Making Mario Party Advance a single-player game was a very strange move. When you have these link cables and a franchise like Mario Party that can be used as essentially an instant moneymaker to sell these cables, why on earth would you turn it into a story-driven, semi-adventure single-player game meant for 6-year-olds? I mean, the game isn't bad, but was just so different from the other Mario Parties that was continually ignored for the rest of its life. Yet, this little bundle of confusion hides some of the best mini-games in Mario Party history. Even odder, the best out of the bunch were easily the 5 or 6 you could play using a link cable and play 2-player. And once you play Volleybomb with 2 people, you'll begin to wonder where this game has been all your life. Volleybomb is a simple game with a simple concept. Hit up a bomb back and forth, like pawn or volleyball, until it explodes or you fail to hit it. Whoever side it's on when it explodes loses 1 round and 2 out of 3 wins. The thing about this game is that it's so simple, but leaves so much room for strategy and pitch-perfect timing. Every move you make can be countered, but every counter can also be countered, and becomes an endurance test of who falls through on their adaptability first. It's a real test of skill, with just as much instinct involved as actual strategy, and just works really well. Making a good minigame is difficult, but since it doesn't really matter to the actual game itself, it's usually saved for the last thing that the developer does, or at least the part that the least time is spent on making. As a result, it's extremely rare to find a minigame in a large, full-length RPG that's better than the game itself. Is this one of those cases? Well, I doubt I'll ever be certain. See, after the first dungeon in the RPG Maker game Last Scenario, well, raise your hand if you ever heard of that one. 0 hands? Figured. It's possibly one of the most little-known games on the planet. Anyway, I sort of got stuck and couldn't figure out for the life of me what to do next. And being an RPG Maker game, with no fan base whatsoever, there aren't exactly an abundance of guides online. So I was forever stuck in that first town. But I didn't really care. Sure, there might be a giant adventure with a great story and interesting characters out there in the world, but as long as I could play a game of Hex with this one guy, I'd be fine. The game of Hex is simple. You get to select this many pieces, and your opponent gets an equal amount of pieces. Each piece has a certain amount of attack and defense, and areas where it can and can't attack. By positioning your pieces strategically, you can reduce the defense of your opponent's pieces down to 0, at which point you claim that tile. The guy with the most tiles after every spot on the board is filled wins the match, and gets his pick of one of his opponent's pieces. I am so thankful that they gave you this minigame right at the start of the game. I spent over an hour playing it before it even occurred to me that I probably should be doing something story-driven, and the whole time I was fighting my way through my first dungeon, all I wanted to do was go back and play more Hex. Now I'm positive that this is an exact clone of another minigame somewhere out there, but I have no idea what it is, so Hex is what's making it on this list. And well, I'm okay with that. Now this entry may be considered questionable. All it does is ask the question, at what point does a minigame stop being a minigame and start being another game mode? No matter what, I'm including Insaniquarium Deluxe's challenge mode here, so, well, eat your heart out. The main difference between challenge mode and the regular game is quite simple. The longer you take to get one of the all-important egg pieces, the higher the prices of those things up at the top that you totally need to get in order to continue on the game really easily increase. This may not sound like a huge difference, but it seriously turns what was once a casual and interesting little challenge of a game into a game of strategy and quick thinking, with each round generally lasting about 5 minutes, if you're pretty good. 5 minutes sounds pretty good for a minigame to me, but if you do take too long, suddenly you discover that the price of a carnivore is now $1,500 instead of $1,000, and all your well-laid plans fly out the window. You start farming for more money, which you'll eventually reach, but by the time you get there, the price will have increased to $1,800, and you won't have enough left to get that weapon upgrade, which is going to be very bad for your fish when 2 pairs of aliens arrive in less than a minute. If you aren't on your toes, you will suffer. And the fact that such a little change transforms everything about this game is, to put it simply, mind-blowing. Whether it's a minigame or not, it's on here now and can't be helped. Don't think I'll be losing any sleep over it though. I, unlike many people on the internet, love Skyward Sword. If there was one thing I wish had been added, it would have been a versus mode where 2 links could face off on a one-on-one sword duel to the death. But I guess that we can live without it, but only for one reason, and that reason being Swordplay from Wii Sports Resorts. One of my favorite versus minigames ever made, Swordplay will have you and your soon-to-be ex-best friend hacking and slashing each other in the best, most entertaining way possible. It's fast, unpredictable, and wildly fun. But the real treat lies inside the alternate mode known as Swordplay Showdown. No hacking and slashing is going to get you through this. Indeed, it'll only get you killed. If you want to fight your way through these hundreds of enemies, you have to do it strategically. Blocking is a good tactic, but spend too long on it and you'll be open to attacks from all other sides. Sure, you could try to kill everyone before they kill you, but if somebody is blocking, you'll bounce right off and get half a dozen times hit instantly. You have to be careful, meaningful in your strikes and your blocks, but you have to do it quickly and with a good bit of instinct as well, which basically means that this is as close to real swordplay on the Wii or Wii U we're ever going to get. And all held in one small little minigame among a dozen others. Could Four Swords be counted as a minigame? Well, some people count it and some people don't. For the purposes of this list, I didn't, but if I had, let it be known that I would have easily made it into the top 3, because I love Four Swords. And that's really all that there is to say about it. Four Swords, it's good if it's a minigame. Does Mario Party count as its own franchise, allowing me to throw in another Mario game? Well, maybe not usually, but this is the top 10 minigames list. It doesn't exactly feel fair to force me out leaving the best minigame I've ever played in order to talk about a single Mario Party minigame, when there are hundreds of those little buggers. It'd be like making a list of top 10 platformers, then telling me I couldn't include a Mario game because Yoshi's Island already made it on. But whatever the case, let it be known that Bob-Omb Blast of Mario Kart Double Dash is my favorite minigame ever made. It has, of course, everything a good minigame needs. You can just mess around with it. Or if you want to get serious, there's tons of real substance here. It's a great idea and it's executed so very well. What easily helps it the most is how much the stage design lends itself to this battle mode. On, for instance, the stage Nintendo GameCube, it becomes an instant free-for-all, bombs flying everywhere, explosions covering explosions, everybody just trying to overpower one another. Utter chaos, utter fun. In Block City, though, everything changes. The entire situation becomes a game of strategy, cornering opponents or surprising them, hitting carefully and strategically, as you won't get anywhere if you throw bombs willy-nilly. Every other stage fits somewhere in between those two, and yet feels extremely different. Whatever sort of fun you want to have in Double Dash, it's found here. But more than that, there's just something about this mode that is pure fun. Just throwing bombs around and exploding your opponents is something that I will never, I repeat, never get tired of. Way better than dropping banana peels to get rid of some balloons or stealing away a shine sprite or a couple of coins. There's something in its simplicity that strikes a perfect chord. Sure, popping balloons is great and all, but sometimes you just want to blow something up. I'm LittleZbot, and when you realize that some of the biggest titles of this year didn't have the care or quality of some of these minigames, it's a sad day for Star Wars fans. I do hear that Yoshi's Woolly World isn't bad though.